Here's an old-time Euro that I recently picked up a copy of, Streetcar. This, from what my understanding is, was published originally in Germany under a different name. I'm not someone to look up all the pedigree of Euro games. But I played it once or twice, my friend Tom, and I really liked it, and he kind of humored me with it. But this is, again, my style of Euro, the kind of lighter ones. Let's take a look at what we're going to do at the rules for it before we start playing. Okay. So the goal of this game is to build track running from basically a randomly assigned terminal to the other number of the same randomly assigned thing. And I think a lot of effort was put in to balance the terminals, the routes, and all that are possible. To make sure that everybody has kind of a fair shake and that they're all going to get kind of intertangled and have to work together. What you do at the beginning of the game is each person gets a random one of these face down. Nobody else gets to see it. This is your terminal connections. You'll be running from 1 to 6. Now, there are 6 different shoes. The game supposedly is only going to hold 2 to 5 players. By the way, playing it in 2 a couple of times, it is really cool in 2. I don't remember if it was as cool in more people, and we're going to be playing it with a full boat. I think I'll only play with 5, thereby making sure that one of these terminals is not in play. Otherwise, if you're playing with 6, the problem is that you can block a terminal, and if you don't own it, you know you're screwing someone else up. There's no way you can completely deny someone access to something, but you can make their life harder. And if you know that you're making someone else's life harder, you'll play there. If you're not sure if 5 out of the 6 terminals are filled, well, then you have, what, a 20% chance of failing. You know your own terminal, even with 5 players. If you're playing with, say, 2 players, chances are it's very important to kind of hide which terminal you have, because the other player can once they detect it, can start making your life a little more miserable. Okay, so you're going to be handed one of these, and your goal is basically to connect those 2, but you're also going to get a card from one of these 2 decks. Now, the 2 decks are different. One is all pairs of locations, and the other one's all triples. Because I like doing things more perversely and painfully, I'm going to use the triples. But what that means is you're going to have to, as a player, your goal is to take the streetcar terminals that you have, so in this case 3 and 3, and if you had this, you'd match that up to the 3 row, G, M, and L. You would have to make stops at, there's M and L, and G. And those can be in any order. And your goal is to then race a little trolley along your track, running from one terminal to the other after hitting all 3 of those. Okay. The specifics of the game, well, you end up starting with 5 tiles at the beginning of the game, and the rest of the tiles will go in the bag over here. And this may also be a factor as which tiles there are. So you're going to start, I think, with 3 straights and 2 curves at the beginning of the game. Yeah. Which, you know, allows you a significant amount of play. And then each player in turn is allowed to play 2 tiles on the board, wherever they like. There's some exceptions. If you're next to track that exists, you must connect to it. If you can't run off the board or into a location, when you play a tile, then you play your other one, whatever. There are upgrade tiles which have more complex track on them. You're allowed to just slap those down right away, or like in an 18XX game, you're allowed to upgrade them, but you have to preserve all the track. So for example, this curve here, well, I could play this one here because it has the curve, but I could not upgrade it to this. These ones with trees on them can never be upgraded. That's really just an indication to warn you that they can't be upgraded. There's no way, I think, that any of them have an upgrade built in the track piles. So, because you can't remove track that's already in play, you can't really bone someone by ripping up their track, but what you can do is place something that's annoying, like, for example, a piece like this could be obnoxious, or a piece like this. Now, you couldn't play it here because this would have to connect to that if you played it there. A piece like this could be really obnoxious because it forces the person to go around it unless they can upgrade. Okay? So now, when you're going to be running your streetcar, and we'll get to that in a moment, you have to travel kind of smoothly, the way you would in 18XX, which is you can run along here and take this kind of turn, or you can, of course, go straight, but what you cannot do is run up here and then whip around this way. As you can see, the train couldn't actually make that turn. And likewise, you can never make these 90-degree turns. The only turns you can make are less than 90 degree, which are these kind of mellow curves. Okay. Now you'll see some racetrack like loops and stuff happening in this game probably. And that's fine, because you can always upgrade and break your way through the track until it gets up to these final tiles. Okay, now like I said, your goal is to run the track between one terminal and the other and hit those locations. The first track that's played adjacent to a location gets one of these little stop markers placed on top of it, and I don't think I have these open, but you just stand it up on top of the piece, and you'll see that in the playthrough. And that is the one place where your trolley must go to hit that location. Okay? And let's see, what else do we have? Alright, so once you think you have a route that can make it the whole way, oh, I haven't collected everything here. Alright, so when you upgrade track, for example, if I wanted to upgrade this piece to this, I take the tile that I'm upgrading into my hand, okay? And at the end of my turn, after my two track plays, I replenish my hand up to 5 tiles, which might mean if I did 2 upgrades, I don't get any draws from the bag, but normally it means I get draws from the bag. What's cool, what's not cool about that? Well, upgrading means you're getting crappier pieces, because they're pieces. Remember, you can always play a fully upgraded piece. Now, in some cases, that may not be the case. For example, if I need to play a piece here, I can't do this one. But for the most part, the more upgraded pieces, I can slap down most places safely. But the pieces that I'm upgrading may well be lower, earlier pieces that might not give me as many connections. I might not have as many places I can place them, and I can't upgrade with them because I have to match all the track on it. So I couldn't, hey, there we go. I can't do that. Okay. So now, let's see what the other side of this is. You're allowed to do a double upgrade. This is important because if I had, say, this, I couldn't upgrade just this. I would have to make track connect through there, so I could do something like this as a double upgrade, right? And that would, allow me to build the route that I want all at once, but I have to do it in one play. So, in the event that I had something like this, and yeah, it's possible, I guess, I then couldn't do this and take these off. There's a little bit of crappiness because once it gets kind of crowded, it's going to be hard to pick things up and take things down, especially holding a camera in my hand and using my left hand. Alright, once you think you have a route built, you can flip over your cards and show, hey, I'm 3 and I'm going to GML, and you trace that route out from one terminus to the other and show that you can legitimately run your train that way. Now you've entered the race phase. You put your little trolley on the board and you start moving it. And the movement is really cool. There's an optional rule for using dice for movement. That's bogus. So the movement works. You can move one space faster than the last little trolley that moved. So if you're the only little trolley that's moving, on your first turn you can move 1, on your second turn you can move 2, and you can just keep going at it infinitum with one proviso. Whenever you hit a stop, whether you want that stop or not, if the stop is on the track that you're on, you must stop. And then that records what the speed of the last move is. And you record that with one of these little stop markers. You pretend that's a stop marker. There. So, you know, for example, if I had the right to move, say, 8, but I only moved 3, that would make the next person only have the right to move 4. You also have the right to choose how far you're going to go. You don't have to go your maximum speed possible, which means if you look and say, I can't quite make it this time, let me make half the distance and slow everybody else down too. You win the game when you run from one terminus to the other after hitting all your stops. That can sometimes be complicated because you can't, you know, it's a trolley, it's on tracks. You can't just go, wee, there's no little roundhouses or anything like that to play with here. So you've got to have it, the entire path working on track alone. That's about it. You win when you make that route. Other people who come in, other people who connect their routes, as they connect them, can declare them and start their little trolleys. And then they're in this little race game where they might be manipulating the speeds a little bit. What I've seen so far is that everybody kind of gets their trolleys right around the same time. The way the track is set up, it's really likely that whatever you built, you probably haven't hurt your opponent too much. But you can knock them back a couple of turns, and then you've got one last little catch-up, which is with playing with the speeds there. Now, of course, that's a possible king-making flaw where, you know, I go 1. Gee, thanks. But generally, if everybody's kind of trying to place as well as they possibly can, that might have some effect on your victory conditions, but for the most part, it's going to be whoever has set up their track and gotten themselves there first. Usually whoever lays the track first will end up winning, but it's not an absolute guarantee. There may be inefficiencies in your track, and you don't have to declare your track until you want to, which means you can keep improving your track, maybe even while other people have trolleys running on crappy track. They can change their route in mid-route, as long as they're not cheating. You know, they can't say, oh, I'm here, yeah, I'll go this way, right? They've got to follow the movement rules. They can go over the same track twice, stuff like that. They just can't turn around or anything like that. And that's all you got. I'll start my playthrough, and let's have some fun.